Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of The Breeze, Breezeway Productions' The Breeze, where we are excited to kick off our coverage of this year's 2021 Tribeca Film Festival. Digital, once again, just like last year. Tribeca was the first festival that we covered in April, May, and started doing digital interviews. So this is now full circle. And here we are once again with our first filmmaker, Brandon Kramer, for his documentary that is screening this year called The First Step. How are you, Brandon?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thanks so much for having me.
For sure. Thanks for coming on the show. Tell our audience a little bit about The First Step.
Yeah, The First Step is it's a feature documentary that follows the story of Van Jones, who is, for those who don't know, Van's a CNN political commentator, longtime social justice activist, worked in the Obama administration. And the film follows Van as, one of the few progressives during the Trump era who was really passionately trying to work across racial and political dividing lines on criminal justice reform and addiction. And so the film follows Van, other activists in his network as they try to pass a comprehensive criminal justice reform bill called the First Step Act. Focuses particularly on Van's work with the Trump administration and Jared Kushner on that bill. A lot of the blowback and sort of turmoil of trying to, work with conservatives at such a fraught moment. The film also follows Van trying to bring a group of activists together from rural West Virginia and South Central Los Angeles around their shared experience around the addiction crisis in both communities. So it's a story about Van and other people's attempt to work across these dividing lines and really the struggles and perils and hardships of trying to do bipartisan work at such a divisive moment.
Yeah, it was fascinating to see the take on it. You were like a fly on the wall watching Van's journey as he was looking to get this initiative passed. And I think that the overall question that emerged from it is Van Jones. Is he the villain or is he the hero? So you have a lot of takes of people that are for what he's trying to do, of reaching across the aisle, and others that are damning him for his actions that he's doing. So when you're putting this documentary together, did you want it to have that aspect of decide for yourself and show both sides, or how did you go when you executed the documentation of it?
Yeah, I think a lot of films create that sort of false binary choice of is someone a hero, or are they a villain? The reality is Van Jones is a human being. Mm-hmm. And, Van and I, this is our third project collaborating together. We've had a long relationship. And, when we started, when Van came to us, or when we came together and he said, I'm going to spend the next 4 years during the Trump administration trying to work across the aisle with this administration, with conservatives. The conversation I had with Van was really, this is going to be a really important story to tell. But if we're going to tell it, we got to tell it in a really honest way. And we got to show, where the victories are, where this work is a success, but also where it struggles and where it falls short in certain ways. And so, the goal of the film is really to show Van neither as hero or villain, but just as an activist really attempting to do this work to show, I personally think, Van is one of the few people attempting to do this kind of work and attempting to work across the divides. I think that there's a lot to be learned, a lot to be gained. The bill, for those who, I'm kind of giving away a little bit of the ending, but the bill that was passed, has gotten more than 10,000 people out of prison. It was a huge bipartisan victory, but it also, caused challenges and a lot of people disagreed with him. And so our approach in making the film was always, let's make sure we empathize with Van. Let's really try to understand his activism, his strategy, his work. But let's also try to understand the other activists that disagreed with his strategy.
Right.
So we spent a lot of time with people that were opposed to the First Step Act or opposed to his strategy of engaging with this administration. Yeah. And my goal with the film is really to make it, my hope for the film is that it's the kind of movie that whether you feel bipartisanship is necessary or not, however you agree or disagree with Van, you have a seat at the table, you can engage with this film, and you can come out and we can debate it and discuss it.
Yeah. That's criminal justice reform is a very important topic that needs to be brought up more frequently, and that has become Van's main drive in trying to get people that are incarcerated out of prison if they're for smaller misdemeanors or things, so that they should be going towards a better life outside of prison. You had, round tables for people that were in prison of like what they're facing, and just because the system is flawed in the way that it is, they're stuck there. You also have some cases of people that were really targeted by like drug abuse, and how their life was really, really low, and how they picked up after that, and then they are looking forward to a more progressive life of contributing to society. You also had some interviews with some very high profile people in government, specifically Jared Kushner multiple times. How was it as a documentarian getting to work with these high level individuals? I'm sure their schedules are very busy and security is tight. So for other documentarians, how did you work that out? Was it through Van or through your producer, which is your brother, or how did that work?
Yeah, it was a really challenging process, making a verite observational film about a public figure that's working with the highest political levels, in the country is an
Yeah.
extremely challenging process. I mean, a lot of this started with Van. He's the one who had the relationship with political leaders, with Jared Kushner. So, it took him being like, look, these guys, I can vouch for them. I trust them. So that was the first step of the process. And then, it took phone calls with their staff. I went with Van several times to a lot of these meetings. He was meeting with Jared, with Democratic leaders, Republican leaders on a regular basis, his team. And I would start going with them without a camera, just to build the relationship, explain what I'm doing with this documentary. The reality is, this is not a gotcha film. There was nothing to hide. It was like, I'm making a film trying to tell the honest story about how hard this work is. I would explain that to them. And then, over time, we were able to build enough of a relationship that we could get our crew in the door. And really the goal was, I don't want to do a performative sit down interview where somebody's just sort of rattling off talking points, but how can we get the camera in the room to capture what does the legislative process actually look like of getting a bill passed? Washington is talked about a lot. It's like, okay, let's get a bill passed. Well, my goal, being from Washington and really seeing this bipartisan process play out, was how can we give audiences a small sense of like what this work actually, how does making the sausage, how does getting a bill passed actually look like? And most people were really open to letting us, in the room.
Yeah. This is the United States of America. So when we need to be united, people have to reach across the aisle with others that have different viewpoints so that things can work together. I know there was a whole thing that you had with Cotton, and that you were following people around saying like, go for this one, don't go for that one, how things work on the Hill. And it's quite fascinating. I've seen a couple of docs, like one on HBO about like how things work, and it's very tumultuous to say the least. I thought there was one really big climax. What was the energy like in the Oval Office when you were that is the height of where you can possibly be documenting things? How was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was it was a challenging experience. I mean, it was.
How'd you feel there in front of the president?
I mean, it's like, I'm there following, this story and this journey.
Right.
And, my role there was to document and to really like hone in on what Van and his team's engagement was with the Trump administration on this particular issue and this particular bill. While we're there's obviously like all these, really painful things happening in the country at this exact same moment. And so I'm definitely like, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel that, I didn't carry that with me, into some of these spaces and conversations. But at the same time, I'm sitting there and able to, bear witness to, a true moment of both sides coming together with the outcome in plain view of thousands of people being released from prison. So, it was a, it was a really intense time for the country. It was an intense time to be up close to these moments. But honestly,
Yeah.
I felt I had a responsibility that I was bearing witness to one of the very few moments when people from both sides were coming together at a moment when literally everyone was just fighting and in their
As possible.
corners. And I just
Yeah.
felt like I need to do everything I can to show this, not in a Pollyanna way, not to just make it seem all rosy, but to show that even in a moment of this kind of divisiveness, it is possible to come together. And my hope is that the film can be a conversation starter for people of all different political persuasions on the left and on the right to
Yeah.
look at this story and say, how can we figure out how to work through the nuances and complexities of actually bridge building and coming together on some of these issues where we really should not be fighting, like getting people out of prison, like addiction, which is facing communities all over the country.
Yeah, I understand. I very much enjoyed the film. I think that you've executed your goal of following Van and documenting his journey of reaching for criminal justice reform in this aspect. He had a very tough time through the film just because of life happening and people that are for or against. He's being pulled in many different directions. It was very engaging, and I thought that it was a wonderfully made documentary. And congratulations on your acceptance into Tribeca this year. In closing, is there anything you'd like to say to the Tribeca Film Festival organization for the world premiere of this Van Jones doc, The First Step?
I would just say, it's an incredible honor to be premiering this film in New York City at the Tribeca Film Festival. This is a festival that I've attended in the past. I've always looked to as a sort of shining light of the best of independent film, and so to have our film at this festival in front of the Tribeca audience is really the honor of a lifetime. We've been working on this film for 5 years. And so
Wow.
we literally just finished it last week. And
Woo!
so, just being able to have friends, community, all the people in the film, be able to see it, be able to have this celebratory moment. Obviously, I wish we could be there, have a in-person component, but obviously in the coming weeks and months, we'll have plenty of time to screen in person. I'm just thrilled to have an online audience for the film at this moment.
Absolutely. And we're happy to showcase your film on our platform. And I thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak with us about it. So we urge our audiences to check out The First Step, director Brandon Kramer, along with his brother who produced it as well. I think it's a wonderful documentary, and you should definitely check it out if you're into politically active films showcasing movements that are being made by people to help for criminal justice reform. And thank you again for speaking with us. And we look forward to showcasing your film to our audiences.
Thank you so much, Alex. Really appreciate you having me on.